I'd rather talk about the Thunder bug than the injury bug, but in today's episode of Locked On Lightning, we focus on full key injuries ahead of the upcoming preseason tilt against Carolina and Tampa's strong community footprint.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is the podcast for you. Josh Sperber here on Locked On Lightning as we take a look at some upcoming storylines ahead of the Lightning's penultimate preseason tilt, this time against the Carolina Hurricanes for the second time. And Tampa has already been bitten by the injury bug a little bit throughout this offseason, as is pretty common. Fortunately, some of the top line players have seemed to be exempt from the injuries so far, knocking on wood, to hope that that stays the case. But the latest victim of the preseason injury is Gage Gonzalez, who was a guy that, with the Lightning picked in the second round of the 2020 draft, who suffered an upper body injury in the preseason matchup against the Florida Panthers. He's missed the last 2 days of practice after Monday's game, after he made his NHL debut in 2024. He was a guy hoping to compete for one of the lower line spots, typically a center for the Lightning, who dominated in Syracuse and now will likely start the season on an injury list, joining guys like Michael Eyssimont, Luke Glendening, among many others for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you never like to see injuries, but it's good to not see some of the Lightning's first-line guys get hit by that injury bug. And the Gage Gonzalez injury is definitely going to shake up the Lightning roster a little bit. I think it was one of the reasons that Dylan Duke was called up for the Wednesday game after over the weekend he was sent down to Syracuse. He was able to get back up after the Gonzalez injury, and Gage was a guy who was really expected to be one of the fourth-line guys, but now the spots are kind of opened up. Zemgus Girgensons was just featured on the Lightning's offseason YouTube show, New in Blue, and that makes me think he is likely going to get a spot, and he is, over 30 years. He's 30 years old now. Nice veteran presence. That's going to help the Lightning, especially with Glendening on the injury list. But again, Gonzalez's injury is going to open the door for some of the younger guys, like maybe Connor Geekie, to get that fourth line spot. Now, it might not be a permanent addition to the roster, putting Connor Geekie on there with the Gonzalez injury. He might just stay up there, and then he could eventually take Gonzalez out of a spot. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, but I think the biggest takeaway that I have, and probably that I'm going to have from any, injury like this, and including this Gage Gonzalez injury, really all signs are pointing to Connor Geekie joining the Tampa Bay Lightning opening day roster. We talked about Geekie's impact on his teammates coming after Josh Davies, after that open ice hit on Victor Hedman, dominating him in the fight. It really seems like that was just the cherry on top in terms of Connor Geekie earning his respect from his teammates. And I'm going to be one of the first guys to admit when I'm wrong. It happens a lot, so kind of have to do it. But I know I started my time in this podcast saying that the best move for the Lightning and Connor Geekie would be to keep him in the AHL to start the season. And ideally, I think best case scenario, a fully healthy Lightning team, yeah, that's definitely a positive for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think it would be a smart move just to let Geekie develop a little bit more, get his feet wet underneath him in the Lightning organization in the AHL before he starts getting significant time with the Tampa Bay Lightning in the NHL. But Geekie has played nearly every preseason game, and it seems like he's passing every single test. So it's honestly, especially with the Gonzalez injury now, the guy who I had thought was going to be a potential fourth line center to start the season for the Lightning. And I just don't see open spots filled up by not Connor Geekie. Like I just don't see it. Like he's just been so good in the preseason. He's shown his skills on the offensive side. He showed his willingness to just, stick up for his teammates, drop the gloves, anything like that. I mean, he has just been outstanding, I think, for the Lightning in the preseason. And, I think there's a lot of potential where the Lightning could go with their lines. They move their forwards around. I think a couple of the lines are still kind of set in stone. If you have Gonzalez as a center, which is just where I'm looking right now, Point is line 1 center. Cirelli is line 2 center. I think Nick Paul, Luke Glendening might be line 3 or 4. Zemgus Girgensons might be there, but he could be on the wing. And I just really don't see another center on the Lightning roster that is going to be a better asset to the team than Connor Geekie right now. I think that these injuries to guys like Michael Eisman, to Luke Glendening, whose status for game 1 of the season is still up in the air. He and Eisman, though, were both practicing without red jersey with Lightning's main squad that Connor Geekie was with in yesterday's practice. So Geekie's getting a lot of those first team reps, and I think that's good because it is, it's good to have your top prospect work with some of the veterans. It's good to be able to get some of just the best, the best guys surrounding someone that, eventually could be the future of this franchise. I mean, that's how a lot of people have been talking about Geekie, and the things that I've seen from him as just a player and person may seem like that is a definite possibility. And, with Gonzalez going down for, it could be weeks, it could be longer. It gives Geekie the opportunity to at least have a shot to take that spot. Now, I'm not saying that, Geekie's going to come in there and just turn into Wayne Gretzky or Steven Stamkos 2.0 or something like that. I think that would be a incredibly rash prediction, especially just based on a couple of games of preseason hockey. But the door is open for Connor Geekie. The door is open for other young guys on this Tampa Bay Lightning team in an unfortunate way because there are so many other players, guys that the Lightning have, had in their pipeline for a little bit. Some of their younger prospects are just starting to get hurt right now. And that's really unfortunate. I don't want to, get all excited for a Connor Geekie NHL debut just because he's getting there because of these injuries. But I think the biggest takeaway from Gonzalez and these other, little injuries that just keep nagging the Lightning and just keep popping up over the course of preseason, it opens the door for these young prospects. And that's how some of these stories can get told. There are cases like this in all over sports. There was the Tyrod Taylor punctured lung that gave Justin Herbert a chance to start. It's now his job over in LA with the Chargers. And I'm sure there are other examples. That's just the first one I can think of at the top of my head. But that's the main takeaway from this Gonzalez injury, from, the other injuries that have led into the preseason for the Lightning at this point. The door is open for some of these young prospects. And with the performances that Geekie has put in, I just don't see anyone else who's going to come up sooner than him. The Lightning have a couple of other really good young offensive prospects. They've got Groshev, Sturk, just to name a few. Dylan Duke, who came back up after the call up after Gonzalez's injury on Monday, but that's like really started to come to light more later. And I just really, with all these injuries to start the season, it's just making me lean more and more to Connor Geekie on the opening day Tampa Bay Lightning roster. So I do wish Gage Gonzalez the best. I hope he comes back soon, but it could open the door for Connor Geekie to just sprint right through and then slam that thing shut on anyone else, because I think anyone who has watched Geekie this season will agree with me that it's going to be really tough to send him back down to the minor leagues once he officially gets on the NHL regular season roster for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we're going to talk a lot more about the Lightning as a team. But first, we're going to take a break and have a word from our sponsors at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, and that is because it's America's #1 sports book. We all have something a little different for you, and that is FanDuel customers are able to bet $5 and get a 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel every time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. And I know I am not a big bettor, but I know any of my friends that place bets, they use FanDuel, and I think you should too. So, something that I have kind of touched on a little bit over the course of this past week is just kind of little things here and there about the Lightning popping up around the community. It really seemed like, as a team, Tampa has ramped up their community service efforts. Some of that has been led by the ownership group. Have to give a big shout out to Jeff Vidick. They, the $2 million donations with players' donations, it's gone up to over $3 million in the past week since Hurricane Helene ravaged the Tampa Bay area. And I mean, I know, kind of at the beginning of some of these podcasts, I have said something just to give props to the Lightning, the team, the ownership group, just the organization, I think, has just had a really good response to Hurricane Helene. Certainly one of the most devastating hurricanes that has hit this area in a number of years. And it's awful that, they have to do this, that, everything has just been difficult around the community in the surrounding areas, that, the Lightning have had the opportunity to do this, and they've taken advantage of the opportunity, and that is great. But, as unfortunate as the circumstances of showing, I think, the true character of this Lightning team, a team that really cares about their fan base and their community at large, I really think that the community service, the amount that Tampa is really starting to do, is going to have a positive impact on the Lightning for the season. Aside from the general fact that doing these kind of things, that serving the community is just always a good thing. There's really, I think the only way you can say anything kind of negative about the community service is the reason to do it. It is just awful to see some of the devastation around this area, but it's great to see the Lightning realizing that and getting out there in the community. The past couple weeks, they have gone to numerous community sites in Tampa Bay area, in St. Pete, in Clearwater, in cities surrounding Tampa, closer to the water, that got hit by Hurricane Helene. But the rainbow from this, the silver lining, the light at the end of the tunnel, however you want to slice it, I think could lead to increased success for the Tampa Bay Lightning this season. At the very base of it, the Lightning now have something extra to play for. I think there is, after this offseason, with about half the team being new, whether they're prospects or offseason acquisitions, it's a new look Lightning team with still a strong playoff history, history of winning Stanley Cup championships, particularly over the past couple of years. This Tampa Bay Lightning still wants to maintain an identity as a winning franchise, and that is difficult to do in the eyes of the media when you lose your franchise player. Just because Victor Hedman is likely with 32 games needed to pass, or 31 games needed to pass Steven Stamkos for most in franchise history, that doesn't offset the loss of a guy like that. But these community service events, I think, are giving the Lightning a good opportunity to come together as a team. You're seeing groups. You're not just seeing, you are seeing, Victor Hedman, Santa Hedman, his wife. They have both been very aggressive in terms of donating time and money to help this Tampa community. He's really set a strong example as a team captain. And it just seems like the chemistry is already there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Watching that game against the Panthers on Friday, they were moving the puck really well. It really seemed like they were gelling as a team. Just Knight was standing on his head in net and made a bunch of really nice saves. And then that overtime winner was just a really high level goal. But with the Lightning going around and kind of rallying together with the Tampa community, I think it gives them an opportunity to see how much this team means to the Bay Area. Sporting success is relatively new in Tampa. There's some teams that still, the Rays have had a difficult time. The Lightning have been the most successful Tampa Bay franchise in terms of championships recently, with the possible exception of that Brady Buccaneers championship. But now you have them around in the community, seeing what they mean to their fans, some of who have been devastated by Hurricane Helene. And, I think it just gives the Lightning more than just that chip on their shoulder to try and prove that they can still win without Steven Stamkos, that they can win with a younger team, that they still have a winning culture and a winning identity. And the word culture especially has been thrown around in just about every press conference that I've seen or that I've been to for the Tampa Bay Lightning so far. And, you can tell that the winning is important, but I really think that the community service aspect of this offseason is going to help the Tampa Bay Lightning kind of band together. And it certainly looks like they're more of a team than you would expect when it comes to preseason. Anything I've seen has been just more kind of, individual playing sort of rust. Like, you don't see gaps in chemistry. You don't really see some of the new guys struggling to fit in and find their role with the Lightning team. I think on the ice, it's helped by the fact that they're coming together so much off of the ice. And aside from the fact that you really have to commend the Tampa Bay Lightning for banding together and supporting the community after the hurricane, I think that it is going to have a positive impact on the Lightning season. It just gives them that much more behind them. I think you're going to see a more supportive fan base that is already one of the better fan bases in hockey. They're getting 5-digit crowds in preseason games, which is something that I am not used to seeing in preseason. So, I think that the Lightning need to just keep doing what they're doing. I really commend Victor Hedman's work. He has really shown what it means to be a captain so far with his community outreach, his leadership on the ice. It seemed like every time I looked at him and Moser in the last game, Hedman was directing traffic. He was telling JJ Moser where to go. and really coaching up one of the newer members of the Lightning, playing on a different side than he has normally done in his hockey career. But I think that the most impressive part of Hedman as captain has been what he has done off the ice and leading the Tampa Bay Lightning in the community. And I think the amount of effort that the Lightning as a team are putting into community service, I think can only help the team morale and team chemistry prepare for midseason form as they get ready for the regular season. So a big shout out to Jeff Vinik, Julian Brisebois, the entire Tampa Bay Lightning team for helping out this Tampa Bay Lightning or this Tampa Bay community. And I hope they keep doing that as the season goes on. And I hope that it has a positive impact on the Lightning season and really helps them kind of stick together and, get a really good season going, because I know that is something that we're ready for. The Lightning will open in the season against the Carolina Hurricanes in Carolina on October 11th, in exactly 1 week from today. But today, they will be playing a game against the Carolina Hurricanes in their penultimate preseason performance. Final road tilt of the preseason before the home finale against Nashville on Monday the 7th. But before we talk about that one, we've got Carolina in my mind. So I have had a lot of back problems in my life. I probably sit down too much. I definitely should work out more. And I had been looking for a chiropractor for a long time, and I was told about The Joint, a chiropractor specialist in the Tampa Bay area. They have 4 locations in the Tampa Bay area, 23 locations in South Florida. I live in Clearwater, so I was able to go to the Clearwater location on Gulf to Bay Boulevard. A lot of really centrally located places, but most importantly, the doctors there were great. They showed me different ways, different stretches that they used on my back that I've been trying to replicate at home, but I'm clearly going to have to go back for. They gave me a detailed stretching program, really seemed invested in learning what was wrong with my back when they went to work on me, and my back has felt so much better since I went there the other week. You can get your first visit for just $19 if you go to Buccaneers.com, then /fans, contests, and promotions. And you can also go to thejoint.com to find your nearest Tampa Bay area location. I highly recommend it. If they can help my back, they can certainly help your guys. So now it is the preseason preview. Just 2 preseason games left. I'll be at the game on October 7th on this coming Monday. But a preseason tilt against the Carolina Hurricanes coming up. This is the final road game of the preseason, as I mentioned. And the Lightning are looking to bounce back after an overtime loss to the Florida Panthers. Just 13 seconds into overtime when the winning goal was scored on Wednesday. And now the Lightning already, after a 2-1 game, which they outshot Carolina in the first 2 periods, getting 20 or 23 shots in the first and second period, but a Hurricanes 8-3 outshooting performance in the third and a final minute goal gave them the first win of the preseason. And a lot of things have changed during that time. First of all, both teams have started to put some of their starters on the ice. So this is going to look a lot more like opening night, I think. But the Lightning might kind of use this to just show some tricks up their sleeve, and so show some of their younger players that might not play in the opening game. But I think first, the key to this game, and a big key for the Lightning season, is going to be the power play. I mentioned Jeff Cooper always putting a lot of importance on the power play, or John Cooper always putting a lot of importance on the power play. Jeff Halpern talking about how Nikita Kucherov has been, very vocal in the offseason about trying to improve that power play, talking with the coaches about those strategies and pushing for more time on that in practice as well. But that is going to be the big key to this game, because in preseason so far, the Lightning have only converted on about 20% of their power plays. Connor Geekie does have a shorthanded goal that happened against Florida in the second game of the preseason. And I think this game, the next two games are going to be really telling about who you might see when, in a week from today, when the NHL season is about to begin. I still expect the Lightning to play some of their younger guys. Who might see some players that were sent down to the AHL come up. A couple of young players I'd really like to see some performance from. Maxime Groshev is one of them. He's someone that I've talked about a lot because in the rookie showcase, he looked great. He had a chance to win the game against Florida back on Wednesday. Well, at that point, it was to tie the game. About 8 minutes left in the period. He had an open shot, just kind of pushed it on the ground, ended up as an easy save for Knight. Couldn't go in. Groshev, I'd like to see get on the scored sheet. I'm still waiting for Gensel's first goal. I think it is really important for Jake Gensel to get a preseason goal for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because frankly, there's a lot expected about him. There's a lot expected from him in his first season with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, that is going to happen when you're replacing a franchise legend and one of the best players to ever put on skates. You're going to need to get a lot of goals and points from an $80+ million man, someone who signed the biggest contract he's ever signed, and a 7-year deal is always going to come with high expectations. Now, I'm not saying Jake Gensel has to turn into prime Gretzky or anything like that, but you just want him to have a breakout season and cement himself as one of the best players in the NHL. He's rated a 90 on NHL 25, which is coming out today, by the way. So he is someone that I really like to see get on the score sheet, especially against a Hurricanes team that he used to play for. He knows this team. He knows how they run, and, different players might be changing some things up over there in Carolina, but Jake Gensel still knows how that team runs. He knows the strengths and weaknesses of the offense and defense because he practiced against it for a couple months and played with them for a couple months and helped lead them on a pretty solid playoff run. So he's someone that I'd really like to see get on the score sheet. And kind of like we talked about earlier with the Gage Gonzalez injury, Connor Geekie is someone who can take advantage of, potential more minutes with that injury. And he is someone who could take place as a third or fourth line center. The faceoff, speaking of centers, are going to be a big key in this. The Lightning have won the faceoff battle in each of the last two games, a win and an overtime loss in the preseason, both against the Florida Panthers. It was their smallest margin of defeat in the faceoff battle, winning 44% of the faceoffs against Carolina in their preseason opener. They only had just one penalty in that game as well. So I think a good clean game from Tampa will be useful. The power play is obviously going to be a big key. And that's where I think Jake Gensel can shine. If he can get a power play goal, I think that would just be the ultimate confidence booster for this Lightning team, especially going into a home game after against a Predators team that shut him out. So I'd like to see Gensel get on the score sheet. I'd like to see a power play goal, and I'd really like to see a big game from Connor Geekie, because I really think all he needs is one more big game. He had a 2-goal, 1-assist performance in the 8-7 win against the Florida Panthers in the second game of the preseason. Another game like that, and that might just solidify him on the NHL roster, especially if the Gonzalez injury is going to be a while, especially if Glendening and Isemont can't suit up for the opener against the Hurricanes next week. I think a big game from Connor Geekie puts him on the opening day NHL roster. And I think a goal or an assist from Jake Gensel, just something to get him on the score sheet, is exactly what the Lightning need as their final charge in the preseason when they get ready for a week from today, that opener date against the Carolina Hurricanes. So hopefully we will see both of those things when the Lightning suit up against Carolina at 7 o'clock tonight. But that is it for today's episode of Locked On Lightning. I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, check out the 2024 NHL season preview on Locked On NHL. A 6-episode series will bring you the best local insight to make you the most informed NHL fan heading into the NHL season in 1 week's time. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you all once again for tuning in. I'm Josh Sperber. Enjoy your weekend. If you're still in the Tampa Bay area, stay safe, stay healthy as we all continue to recover from Hurricane Helene. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in.